Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Neti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai. Hare Krishna. Very happy to be here this morning with everybody to honor and recognize our wonderful, dear departed friend, Bhakti Charu Swami, who left us about a year ago. It's incredible to think that it's been a whole year because it doesn't seem like it. But we're very, very happy to be part of this, and especially today, we're recording this on Bhakti Vinod Thakur's disappearance day, and he's the great-grandfather of the TOVP, and Maharaj was such an example of leadership for the TOVP and such a great friend of ours. And I talked to Brajavilas Prabhu in Mayapur this morning, and the plans for the Samadhi are going ahead very nicely. So the plan is to be completed by the 24th, so we can have a very grand opening ceremony for Maharaj's Samadhi. And my wife and I are very happy that we've been able to do this a small, insignificant service to Maharaj after everything that he's done for his beloved Srila Prabhupada. So we're very happy that things are moving ahead and that we can honor him in this way. Personally, I knew Maharaj since the early 80s. And he's always just been a very, very dedicated to Prabhupada, dedicated to ISKCON, dedicated to the principles of Krishna consciousness. I was out in San Francisco when I first got to know him. He came out to visit a Trey Rishi. And his line back then was, "Please don't leave ISKCON," because there was a lot going on during that period in the early 80s. And splinter groups were forming, and Maharaj was doing his best to hold everything together. So, and he had the same storyline many, many years later. So his dedication has been steady throughout the years. And as time went on, I got to know him a little bit better. I would see him when I would come to Mayapur, and Swaha and I would go up to his apartment for a Bengali meal, and it was a wonderful experience. And we were able to return the favor when he came to Gainesville and to host him, and Swaha would cook wonderful Bengali food for him. So he was always very grateful for that. And I've gotten even more close to him in the last few years because of the TOVP. Maharaj was always dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and whatever Srila Prabhupada's important projects were. So even though he was doing his own project in Orlando and in Central Florida, he put that aside when it came to Srila Prabhupada's desires for Mayapur. So I could always count on him. And before he departed, we had made plans that we were going to travel together before the pandemic around the United States and solidify people's pledges, and he was willing to go anywhere and do anything for the TOVP because he knew how important it was to Srila Prabhupada. And so I'm always in his debt for that. And more privately, I'm in his debt just because of his association. He was one of those people that just by being close to him and speaking with him and having friendly relationships with him, you were able to advance in Krishna consciousness because he had such a solid character and was such a gentleman and exemplified Vaishnava behavior. So I was very, very grateful to be able to have that association with Maharaj, and we miss him terribly. And it was a shock for us when he left. So we're very happy that we can do some service for him even in his absence. And I've been listening to a wonderful series that he did in 2014, I believe it was, stories from the Bhagavatam. So it's so nice to hear his voice and hear the depth of his understanding of Krishna consciousness. So as I said, I'm happy to be here. My wife is happy to be here, to be able to celebrate this occasion and to renew our commitment to serving Maharaj in his absence. We're always in his debt. We're always have deep, deep love and affection for him. And thank you very much for inviting us to come. I'll turn this over now to my wife, Swaha Devi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There you have true eloquence defined by Srila Prabhupada. True eloquence is truth spoken concisely. And now you will see an example of the opposite because I tend to go on and on. So what I've done is I've written something and timed it so that I don't go over the time limit. So thank you for inviting us to share our remembrances and glorification of His Holiness Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj on the first anniversary of his Tirobhav celebration. By Srila Prabhupada's grace, we understand that both the auspicious appearance and disappearance of great Vaishnavas are to be celebrated because they are equally auspicious, although the mood is somewhat different. We always begin the Disappearance Day celebration by singing the heart-wrenching song of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, in which he expresses his feelings of intense separation from the great personalities who had departed. I have noticed that this whole month of July is full of disappearance days of our great acharyas, beginning with Srivas Thakur, and today, as we are recording this offering, it is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Maharaj and Sri Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami left on the auspicious Guru Purnima, the appearance day of Srila Vyasadeva, and the disappearance anniversary of Srila Sanatan Goswami Maharaj. Therefore, to honor them as well as to please Maharaj, I'm reminded of the beautiful mural in Maharaj's apartment depicting Srila Sukadev Goswami reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. I will briefly mention just a few lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam on this vast subject of service in separation, so beautifully compiled by Srila Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Sanatan Goswami Maharaj said, was his supreme shelter and friend, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from Sri Gadadhar Pandit, whose disappearance date is today. So in honor of all of them, just very superficially touch a few things from the Bhagavatam, because I'm not really The subject of separation is what Gaudiya Vaishnavas, I think, specialize in, but I'll leave it for the senior Vaishnavas to speak on that. So, selecting just two of Krishna's dear friends, Arjuna and Uddhava, we find that Arjuna was faced with the heartbreaking news of Krishna's departure from this planet. The Srimad Bhagavatam says, Arjuna felt great distress over his separation from Lord Krishna, his dearmost friend, but he consoled himself by remembering the transcendental words that the Lord had sung to him. Furthermore, Arjuna says, now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Similarly, when Krishna told Uddhava he was going to return to his abode, Uddhava pleaded with him to take him along as he could not bear the separation. But Krishna instructed Uddhava to go to Badrikashram to convey Krishna's message to Narayan Rishi. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us that although there is great pain and suffering in separation, great solace can be had in remembering and carrying out the instructions of our superiors when they depart. Today, after a year of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj's physical absence, we have come together to celebrate his glorious life of devotion at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada gave us this most precious gift of this association of Vaishnavas. We've been asked to speak about our personal memories of Maharaj as well on the aspect of service in separation. Maharaj is the perfect exemplar of service in separation, following in the footsteps of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He had a close personal association with Srila Prabhupada for only a few months before Srila Prabhupada departed, and then he dedicated his entire life to following the orders given to him by Srila Prabhupada. One of the most important services that Srila Prabhupada gave him was that of translating his books in the Bengali language, to which Maharaj diligently committed himself and completed in a few short years. I remember an incident Maharaj recounted where he went to ask some translation questions to Srila Prabhupada. But when he finished, he lingered on as Srila Prabhupada was getting his massage. Srila Prabhupada said, very emphatically, just give this one life to Krishna. This statement had such a major impact on Maharaj, and he did that to his great credit and glory. He was enterprising and a visionary and understood the impact of Srila Prabhupada's life story could have on the people of this world. And for this reason, he embarked on the task of producing and directing a high-quality television series based on Srila Prabhupada's biography titled Abhay Charan. As predicted, when completed, it was an immediate success. Many lives were profoundly affected by watching the series. I recently and quite unexpectedly came across a letter Maharaj wrote to me many years back, appreciating the fact that my parents were eagerly watching the serial Abhay Charan. He preached extensively in Bengali through television on the Ruposhi Bangla channel, and he inspired me to preach in Bengali through this channel and personally encouraged me to speak about my life's experiences. My husband was also interviewed for this worldwide Bengali audience on this channel. Maharaj held many preaching programs with live audiences in the thousands in India. Bengali is a sweet language, but when Maharaj spoke it, it sounded sweeter still. And even when he spoke English, it sounded so sweet. He was always friendly, kind, and gentle in his behavior, and in his service as a GBC, worked tirelessly to unite Srila Prabhupada's family. He sang like a Gandharva and was an expert cook, personally trained by Srila Prabhupada. He built a gorgeous temple in Ujjain and established a wonderful community of devotees doing many diverse and unique services, such as building beautiful handcrafted Vyasasanas and Singhasanas for temples all over the world. He traveled all through the world to present Krishna consciousness, and his disciples reflect his loving warmth and generosity as we have come to know them, especially in the past year. Most legendary are Maharaja's sweet interactions with his god brothers and god sisters. Last year we were privileged to hear from them, and one recurring theme besides his loving mood was his expertise in cooking the best chow mein. My personal memories. I first met Maharaj at my wedding in Australia, and I remember my parents very much appreciated his presence and felt an immediate bond with him as he spoke with them in Bengali. The next time I saw Maharaj was at Srila Prabhupada's centennial. I remember sitting down on the floor to honor Prasad, and Maharaj was seated next to Prabhu. In an amazing gesture of humility, Maharaj took a piece of prasad from Prabhu's plate, and then Prabhu took something from his plate and shared it with me, and soon it was like a spontaneously loving and fun prasadam honoring party. There are so many memories of seeing Maharaj in Mayapur. He was always so welcoming and warm. I can't count how many times we have honored Prasad at Maharaj's apartment, sometimes with many senior Vaishnavas like during the Panchatattva installation, and sometimes with just our family. When my family visited Mayapur a few years back, Maharaj invited us up to his apartment for an informal chat one evening, and then had us all over for lunch and fed us sumptuous prasad very lovingly. His disciples had cooked a huge feast, and having been personally trained by Maharaj, were offering water to wash our hands at the table. I declined the offer, and so did my girls and son-in-law. They went to the guest washroom, and I was following them, but Maharaj personally escorted me to his bathroom. In all humility, I accepted this kind gesture and was amazed at and appreciated Maharaj's care and attention. When Maharaj came to take prasad at my home the last time, he demonstrated cooking a prep to show me a quick and easy recipe. I have 2 short videos of it. I will forever cherish that memory. When I went to the temple that evening, some of my friends told me that Maharaj had mentioned how I had served him a wonderful Bengali feast. Tears of appreciation welled up in my eyes because I had felt my cooking was not quite up to the mark that day. Maharaj has always been the most stalwart supporter of the TOVP and organized a fundraising event in Kolkata a few years back and enthusiastically led the whole ceremony from start to finish, especially the Abhishek of Lord Nityananda's Padukas, despite suffering from the pain of shingles. Maharaj was a true leader, following faithfully in Srila Prabhupada's lotus footsteps, having understood his cherished desire to see the TOVP built. Maharaj's loyalty and love for Srila Prabhupada, ISKCON, and the devotees was always front and center in his service. He led the efforts to save New Mayapur, and we feel fortunate that we were able to assist him in a small way in that important service. Prabhu and Maharaj were always united in serving the TOVP from way back when. I remember Maharaj making arrangements for us to meet some of the most influential people in Kolkata. He was the perfect ambassador for ISKCON due to his exemplary character, and even though he was mild-mannered and somewhat shy, his grace and purity of purpose charmed and persuaded people. He was always treated with so much respect and love by them. Maharaja's support for the TOVP has always been unwavering. In fact, he had committed to traveling with us to raise funds. The last time we saw Maharaj was during our last trip to Mayapur in February of 2020. Maharaj had traveled from Australia and despite health challenges came to lead the Pushpanjali ceremony of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj's divine appearance. There was also the auspicious day of the Pujari floor opening at the TOVP, and Maharaj offered the first aratik along with so many of us to the small Radha Madhava deities as they were carried through each room of the floor. And then I saw him for the very last time at the GBC meeting during my short presentation for the TOVP. I could sense that Maharaj was not in the best of health, and I wrote him thanking him for coming to the celebration of the Pujari floor opening. And in his usual humble way, he wrote back saying he wouldn't miss it at any cost. Whereas in 2018, Maharaj was in radiant health and spirits at the chakra installation ceremony for the TOVP. He spoke most inspiringly and raised the victory flag as well as performing Abhishek for the chakras. And I remember this so distinctly that there were two flags on either side, and one side Prabhu was there with many senior Vaishnavas, and then on Maharaj's side it was Maharaj, one of his disciples, and myself. So I was so feeling happy that we were raising the flag together with Maharaj. I remember walking into the Conch building with Prabhu, and a devotee asked me to speak with some Bengali reporters, which I did. By the time I finished, my husband had gone to see the installation of the chakra on top of the dome of Lord Nrsingadev temple. I walked out to head that way, he went, but saw Maharaj walking the other way with some devotees, and he said they were going to see the installation from the other side for a better view, so I joined him. It was very informal with a few devotees. They got a few chairs for us, and then the Bengali reporters started asking Maharaj some questions. He spoke with them and then smiled, looking at me, telling the reporters they should speak with me. And I had the good sense to not speak in front of Maharaj, and they too acknowledged that they had already spoken with me before. Then some pictures were taken, and it was the perfect ending to a glorious day of celebration. Personally, it's a great loss for me and my family because he was a true well-wisher and always treated us with genuine affection. I would like to end by expressing my great appreciation and gratitude to all the disciples of Maharaj who have conducted themselves with such grace under the most trying circumstances. May the blessings of Sri Guru and Gauranga always be with you. Once again, I thank you very much for this opportunity. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Jai.